Okay, that's a piece called Cooper that I wrote in 2012 for the Atlanta Symphony International Solo Snare Drum Competition. And a lot of fun to write that piece. And it's kind of fun because it takes me back to the roots of my playing as a percussionist. I spent so much time teaching college now for 30 years, and many people have seen me do a lot of marimba concerts and performing and a lot of writing for the marimba. But when it really comes down to it, my roots really were really on the snare drum. As a youngster, that was the first instrument I played, and actually in some ways, as Stuart Saunders Smith says in his books, is his first and my first love. And so Cooper is sort of a piece that brings together, it's more or less a rudimental snare drum solo with some overtones of orchestral excerpts in there, some Lieutenant Kiji, some Scheherazade you'll see in there as well. And I use some Swiss rudiments in some unique ways. So it was a lot of fun to write, and it helps me remember and realize the importance of rudimental snare drumming and the place I think that it has in our pedagogy. And for me in particular as a teacher, this kind of drumming is really at the foreground of what I teach my students, especially in their first year here at Eastman. We do a lot of work on this kind of style of playing and how it relates to not only them learning to be good snare drummers, but them really learning to be good percussionists overall, and maybe more importantly, good musicians. Because I'm teaching not only snare drum technique through this, but to me, in my way of thinking, an overall style in their playing. So let's start just by quickly talking about the grip, because I think that's something we can always review, and I like to go over that just to kind of start with a clean bill here, so to say. So, holding the snare drum stick, what do we do here? Let's look at the hand and use our hand as a map. So if I use my hand as a map, I look at that line right underneath my pinky, and I'm going to put my stick just inside that line, and in between that line and the heel of my thumb. I can call this the heel of my thumb. Hold it with my index finger and thumb, and I like to keep them perpendicular, meaning they're just right, like so. And then my middle finger comes around, and that's really where most of my technique will come from. From what they call finger control. So that's the fulcrum, the focus point of the grip. Index finger, thumb, middle finger. My back two fingers, my ring finger and pinky I always say they go along for the ride. I don't want to hold on to the stick too tightly. If I do that, it kind of inhibits the bounce. Here's what it looks like on this stool. If I'm really centering in the fulcrum, if I take it off the fulcrum, you can see the trajectory of the stick slows down. If I hold the back fingers, it changes. No back fingers, back fingers, and it kind of slows it down, becomes more inhibited. And actually, I learned this from studying with Paul Jancis, the timpanist in the Cleveland Orchestra, that when you hold the stick tighter, it actually stays on the surface longer. It's subtle, but it does. So I like to keep those back fingers off. Every once in a while, I'll rest my ring finger on. I'm playing kind of soft to get a little extra control, but I don't want to hold on with those fingers. So it's really in the front of the hand. I call this area here the mouth. I don't know what else to call it. It looks like a mouth to me. And I'm going to keep my mouth a little open. I don't want to be a mouth breather and have it wide open, because then I have my sticks down into my fingers. My stick's not in my hand enough. I want it to be in my hand, okay? Nice control, but not held too tightly, because then when I hold it super tight, then I inhibit the motion of my wrist as well. You could even do that without the stick in here, and you can feel how the muscles in your hand kind of tighten up and become less mobile or less able to be flexible for you. And then I want to make sure my fulcrum's in balance. I want my thumb, like I said, index finger to be perpendicular. I don't want my thumb to move up and get out of balance. Even that much is a lot. Even that much is too much. So if I take the stick out of my hand and do that with my thumb forward and do this, you can feel that it feels like I'm a little tight, and then I do that, and it opens up, and I'm a lot more mobile in my trajectory of my wrist movement here, like so. So that's part of it. The stick in the hand and the balance point, I like to say maybe I have 1.5 inches behind my palm with my stick, and you can see I have that little space back there, like so, okay? If I hold it up too far, there's not enough weight in front to get both a good sound and a good bounce off the head. I want to get back here, I have some weight in front of me, okay? To me, whether I'm playing a tam-tam with a tam-tam or a gong mallet, or a bass drum with a heavy mallet, or a snare drum with a snare drum stick, Percussion is all about learning to leverage the weight of whatever implement that you're holding. Okay, so with the tam-tam mallet, they're heavier, of course, and so therefore that mallet then, the weight of that mallet is bigger, and you can sort of get the sense of that. Letting that weight do the work to create the sound is a much easier concept. This is lighter, but it's the same principle to me. I want to make sure I have enough weight in front of my hand that I'm letting the stick really do enough of the work. It's not just me. The further I choke up, the more I'm doing the work, and the sound gets smaller. Now, interestingly enough, if I hold the stick up further, it's softer. You know, and if I hold too far in the back, it's too loud. So I'm going to be in here, like so. And that's my balance point. Last thing I want to say about grip, and it's an important thing, is to be relaxed. I think the most important thing, and all we do as percussionists, is to try and play in a very relaxed way, okay? And when I'm holding the stick, it's important to keep my grip relaxed, okay? I see students oftentimes taking their thumb and doing that with their thumb, and that shows me what I call the compensatory technique, or they're pushing towards what I call a resistance point. You know, you have more bone at the tip of your thumb, so you're pushing here to try and hold the stick tighter because you're feeling uncomfortable. So you're trying to hold tighter. You'll also do that and push down this way, take your thumb off the stick and push towards that bone, okay? Keep it on the pad of your thumb where it's, kind of soft and cushy and relaxed that way. So this, not this, or that, and not that. And not out of balance. All those things are important. And practicing that, and making sure that you have that nice sort of match grip in each hands. All right. Now, I used to play, when I was younger, I played traditional grip. And I still do it a lot. I do that when I play drum set often. But I teach my students match grip. I think it's more versatile and it makes more sense now. Now, where do I have the drum? The drum to me is just below my waistline. My belt is here. So I want to have it just low enough that I can keep my wrists essentially on my hip bones and then drop to there. That feels good to me. Any higher, then I feel like I'm holding my sticks up too high into my torso here. And it tends to make my shoulders come up a little bit. I want to keep everything down and relaxed, all the weight in the floor. Feels really comfortable this way. And I like to have that drum in that spot so I can get my leverage started at my hips, okay? Where do we keep the drum in relation to our body? I want to make sure that my elbows are at my sides as I'm playing, and maybe even a little bit beyond my sides, so maybe my elbows look like this, right at the sides of my torso. And then when I'm reaching up to play different parts of the snare drum head, I'm not going to have to reach too far in front of me. That feels out of balance to me. Then actually my arms feel heavier, and I may start messing with my posture as I do that. I find it interesting. I was thinking about the fact that when I hold my coffee cup, or if I'm holding a can of soda, where do I carry that can? I carry it in this way, and it's at my side. This feels comfortable. That carrying position, if I'm hanging out talking to my buddies holding a cup of coffee, is here, right? It's not out here. I'm not going to do that. That's odd to have that way. So, I see students sometimes having the drum too far away. Okay, and they have to reach out, and it causes some issues with them technically. Actually, they end up using more arm when they don't want to be using arm as well. So those are some of the issues in terms of basics of where the drum needs to be in your body. And then how should your legs be? These are all things that we don't think about enough, but I tend to either have my left foot back and sort of put my weight like so, or I'll be here. But I'm trying to be really comfortable. My legs become shock absorbers. If I have my feet too close together, it's like if I could sort of fall over, and it feels like I don't have a lot of balance. So either I want to have a nice stance like so I'm really nice and balanced and feel very stable, or this way. And I think this works for me because I'm right-handed. This way maybe feels better for a left-handed person for some reason. I could be wrong, but that's my instinct. Okay, let's talk about some basics of playing here. I like to use the book Stick Control. A very famous percussionist wrote that by the name of George Lawrence Stone. He was a very successful vaudeville percussionist in the early 20th century. And he wrote two books. One's called Stick Control, and the other, there's the book called, more than two books, but the two snare drum books, Stick Control and Accents and Rebounds. We're going to just talk a little bit about Stick Control here at first. At the very beginning of Stick Control, pages 5, 6, and 7 are all eighth note cut time exercises with single beat combinations. Terrific stuff. You could just spend years going through these exercises. We're going to just talk about some of the stuff in the very first column of page 5. So if you want to refer to that book, you can go to page 5 and look at the ones I speak to today. Number 5 is the Paradiddle. And I like to start with the Paradiddle because in the Paradiddle, if you look at that sticking, there's both long and short notes in that sticking, okay? My right hand, what the Paradiddle is this. I take my right hand by itself, Okay? Those long notes, I like to move through those long notes because two reasons. One, I feel like musically, which is the most important reason, I give the sticking some contour and I give it a sense of melodic character, which is very important as percussionists, even on the snare drum. We need to think melodically always. Secondly, when I'm teaching this technique that I use, I like to teach technique that helps me internalize time or rhythm. So I use what's called the Moeller technique. The Moeller technique is, looks like you're painting. People like to say it's a whipping technique. I like to think of it more as a painting technique where I use my hand like so. So as I come down to the head, you see my wrist kind of come up with a little bit of a lilt to it, like so. And the reason I like it is because I move through the space in a very continuous way. I don't move through it quickly. If I use just my wrist and keep my wrist down, I tend to move through that space a little faster. And actually it feels a little harder. When I'm coming up like this, that's a lot more work for me. It's almost like I'm moving through water. And I tend, like I said, to hurry. So therefore I feel the time differently. And as percussionists, the way we move really directly relates to how well we play the rhythm or the tempo. And that's actually in some ways a real benefit to us, that we can learn to move in a way that helps us to establish a good sense of time or internalize a good sense of time. So I use that Moeller technique. You look at it slowly here to help me feel that space. I'm going to make sure my computer doesn't turn off on me. So if I do a slow paradiddle, you can see how I'm moving through the space. And as I go faster, it becomes more efficient. And slower, you can see it. And it's very relaxing, very comfortable. It's a great way to warm up. It gets me moving, gets me feeling my time good. You often use a metronome, so I can make sure I'm playing consistently in time as well. Now, if we take those single beat combinations and we go down the page, what Stone does is he takes the paradiddle and kind of moves it over, so your sticking changes in relation to the beat. So then also the paradigm of how you're going to move in terms of the Moeller stroke also changes. So I like to think of each of those single beat combinations as having their own sense of phrasing, or their own sound, really. So if I do move down from 5 to number 6 is this sticking. Okay, so the accent in the paradiddle is always on the beat. At number 6, it goes across the beat. Now, I take the big motions in number 6, it looks like this. And that's where my Moeller comes into play. So I can practice the frame and feel that and hear the time around the frame or around the bigger motions and then fill in. I can go back and forth. Paradiddle, 6. Like so. So both of those, again, have their own identity. It's a slightly different feel in my hands and a slightly different movement paradigm as well. And then again, I'm also, helping me to feel the time through the movement. If we jump down the page, another interesting one for me is number 9, or number 9 and number 12, which are really the same exercise, just the reverse. They're kind of reciprocal exercises. Number 9 goes like this. So, and this is where the Moeller comes in handy, not only to help me with my time, but to help me to drive through when I have 3 notes in a row. When I'm playing a roll, I have a downstroke and a tap stroke, right? So I'm faster, becomes more efficient, like so. When I have number 9, I have 3. And each of those 3 is a slightly different movement paradigm as I move. So it's downstroke and then 2 tap strokes. And then my left hand is on the 4th partial. So my big motion is here. Now I like this because I think the first time you see that, we tend to play something like that, like this. We kind of stab in that 4th partial, that single note on the 4th, which feels kind of awkward. Okay? I want it to feel like it recycles itself like a long note. It's on the 4th partial, but it recycles itself every half note. These are 8th notes. That sounds different to me than. and more importantly, it feels different to me. Now I feel the whole thing comprehensively, it sounds more melodic, and it kind of rolls along through the exercise. And again, I'm internalizing the rhythm in a different way. If I jump down to 12, it's the opposite of that. That single stroke is on the beat. It's much easier to feel that note on the beat as a long note, because in our ears, it's easier to hear that, right? It's easier to hear the long note on the beat. The fourth partial is harder to hear, but that's a good thing to learn. So if I have to play an exercise where I'm playing, or that continuous motion and those kind of syncopated rhythms, learning to play with a more continuous sense of the time, even though it's on the upbeat, is a really important and valuable concept. So that's some stick control things that I use. You can jump into the flam exercises, and you can use the molar strokes on page 16. You got flam taps. You can see how that works as well there. Okay, so I have, so, you know, a flam tap is essentially like a roll with flams, or a downstroke tap stroke with flam. Okay. Here it's super important because with a flam, to execute the flam really well, my primary stroke is always higher than my secondary stroke, or my main note, the stroke that's on the beat, is always higher than the stroke that comes before the beat, the grace note. So with the flam tap, the second note becomes the next grace note, and I have to keep it down. And to keep down, so the molar here not only helps with the time and the feel, but also with the execution of the flam. Same thing in the flam paradiddle. Okay, as well, and even in the flam accent. Okay, so you see how that comes into play there, and now we're going to take that here at the end of our talk here, and bring that into a book that I like to use by Charlie Wilcoxon called The All-American Drummer, 150 Solos. It's a great book. The solos at the beginning start half-page solos, and they're simple. So I like to take the ideas that I'm teaching in stick control, which are basic stick, paradiddles and rudimental ideas and concepts, through the molar stroke, and then put them into a context in these solos in the Wilcoxon book. So if we look at solo number 1, you're going to see flam taps, flam paradiddles, double paradiddles, even a flamacue. Flamacue is, you're going to hear that in there as well. And you're going to see now how I take these movement concepts and put them into a short solo. So here's number 1. So hopefully you can see in that short little burst some of those same kind of things that we did in the stick control in this very simple first exercise in the Wilcoxon. And there's more of these, of course, and you can go ad infinitum into how all of this stuff works out, almost like a language that you put into the book here. So this is a start. And the next session that I do, we're going to talk about rolls and roll subdivisions, how to work on rolls and how to implement rolls into Wilcoxon and other rudimental solos. So there you have it.